What up, insiders, and welcome to another edition of the Price List Update Summary video series. This is Harrison here and Whatley connecting on behalf of Actionable Insights to explore the new line items that were introduced to the Xactimate regional price lists in June of 2020. If you've never seen this before, or us before, welcome. The Plus video series is designed to kind of analyze and explore what new line items were added and potentially how they were meant to be applied. And not only are there new additions to the price list every month, but there's also changes and edits and modifications that we want to explore when it comes to yield and note descriptions, right? What's included in the line item? Let's explore it here. Actionable Insights, if you've never seen us before, is a 501c6 nonprofit, and we are here for the property insurance restoration ecosystem at large, right? We build stuff so that you guys can use it and find success in this industry. So you'll see some resources below. If you've not checked out the Insight Sheet database, the commonly overlooked line item database, the other price list update summaries, videos, and articles that we have, I highly recommend it. But in the meantime, we're here to explore June. So Whatley, what do you think? You want to explore the new line items, I think?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
All right. As you can see here on the screen, on the left side, I have an estimate open, an Xactimate 28 ESX open. It has the new line items that we're going to explore from June 2020. This is the San Diego price list that I've used. And on the right side, I have the e-Service Center support article that kind of highlights in text form what additions and changes were made. So starting at the top here on my ESX, we've got a collection of new roll-up door and hardware line items. Now, there was a few that existed before, but now we've got new lengths and widths and gauges to play with. I've included some here, and actually only one of the plus variety for the 22 gauge, but you can see on the right here from 19 to 32, all of these various sizes, gauges, etc., that people have to play with now. If you jump into the unit price here, in these individual line items, you'll see that the labor here is for an overhead door installer, and that the material will change from person to line item line item. Let me go to 10 to 18 here. This would be the major price difference. Note that the overhead door installer rate was the same between the 16-foot and the 18-foot. If I jump up now to this 14, you will see slight deviation in the yield associated with the size of the door.
That was pretty sophisticated that they bothered to do that. I wasn't sure that you were going to illustrate there was a difference in the labor rates, but it makes sense. It would be, it would require more labor for these larger, heavier doors.
Yeah, I mean, if you really jump into the details here and we hit edit on this component, you can see a direct yield for the 10 by 16 door of 0.35. That would be 0.35. And then jumping to the 14-16 here, and hitting edit, it's 0.30, right? So it's showing that it is harder to install these larger, bigger doors, which is accurate.
So it's calling out essentially a 4-hour installation of these doors once the inefficiencies are applied, right?
Yes, that sounds about right. Yeah, yield 0.234, so about 4 to 5 hours is the final yield associated with these door installs. Yeah. Jumping in, you and I were talking about this line item before. I'm gonna hit out here and just go to the item image to kind of look at what was included or not included. And one of the impasses that you and I discussed between contractors and claims professionals is what is actually included in these line items. And here it says, 14 by 16 roll-up door, track, hardware, and installation labor. And you immediately spit 2 line items that already existed out. You're like, hey, what about this one and this one? I've actually added them here. I'm going to bold them. So specifically what you mentioned was the overhead door weather stop and kind of that jam and trim for the overhead door unit. So kind of what I'm curious as to what you think if those potentially are included or not included in these overhead door line items on the under the replace activity.
Well, first of all, I have to say that it's unclear, and I'll unpack that in a moment. But I want to drill down on why I think these line items were adopted in June 2020. It's been a weird year, right? But there had to be some pressure on the pricing department to prioritize these roll-up doors. Can you give me an idea of what's been going down over the last month and a half?
Yep. In the months of May and June of 2020, there have been some activities in various areas that may require door fixing.
Right. So these rallies, right? So what we saw last month was some additions for glass work and glazing. And so now these roll-up doors. So this is quite helpful and quite timely. And I think the pricing department has done an excellent job to keep up with not only the civil unrest, but also the COVID-19 related line items, right? We've seen them really stay on top of it. So hats off in that context. That said, what comes to mind as it relates to weather stripping and the jam and trim line items is we've consistently seen this debate over the years out on Xactimate Ninjas, our Facebook forum, about whether overhead door weather stripping is included in the line items. And that would be for a more traditional residential garage door. I don't think that it's explicitly understood whether it's applied or not applied. To that end, we've had on the radar the potential of creating an insight sheet for overhead door in a residential environment. If you guys would like to see that insight sheet, let us know in the comments down below, and we may prioritize it. I think we've gotten 6 requests to do so over the last 36 months. But if you guys want to see that insight sheet roll, let us know, and maybe we'll bump that up and prioritize it, because there is a constant debate about whether stripping is included, whether the associated hardware is included. And at least with this one, the hardware is explicitly called out, right? That
Yes.
it's included. So we're not going down that route, which is good. However, is the weather stripping included on these roll-up doors? Because all these roll-up doors, in my experience, have weather stripping along the bottom. And I thought, oh, okay, well, it doesn't call it out in the additional item information, but it'll probably be represented in the components buildup. But if you go to the components buildup, for any ones I looked at prior to this call, I couldn't find it either in the assembly information. So, is it warranted or not? I think that additional research would be required for Actionable to take a formal stance. So we'll let you guys hash that one out amongst yourself. Also, this jam and trim for overhead door unit, I think this is more of a residential installation. Most of these roll-up doors are going in like tilt-up concrete buildings. So I don't think this line item would traditionally apply in a commercial environment. But for residential, especially after a fire, sometimes this can be warranted. If a vehicle comes crashing through a garage door, this is probably not warranted. But if it does end up taking out the jam, I'd say even any part of the jam, I'd say that this line item probably is warranted.
Makes sense.
That's all. Those items just came to mind as kind of those hotly contested, are these to be included or not to be included? But I think they did a pretty good job about being clear what is and what is not with these new roll-up door lines. And
reflecting those yield differences between the different sizes of doors.
Mm-hmm.
Jumping to the next section here, kind of at the bottom, 33 and 34, like 34 new line items. So 33 and 34 on this list, in alphabetical order, will be butyl tape and ceiling metal roofing panels for low slopes. So these are 2 new line items here, 11 and 12, that are brand new. And when you jump into the item information and kind of take a look at what's here, sealant material, installation labor, butyl tape, or metal roofing sealant. One of the aspects of this additional item information I want to explore here is that it says the labor type used in this item is a steel worker, which is really unique. I don't see a lot of line items that have a steel worker labor trade assigned to them naturally. And if you come here and hit the I button to come explore kind of these components, you'll see right here, in fact, yes, it is a steel worker. So this is actually a roofing related butyl tape line item that's been added to the price list, but it employs a steel worker labor trade code. Yeah, these are the intricate details that are now here explored with us live in this Plus video series.
Interesting. Hey, pull up this one that you included, the caulking.
Yeah, so rubber. As we were preparing for this video, we said, wasn't there one other butyl line item that already existed? And there was. It's a NPR moisture protection category code for caulking butyl rubber.
So this is like post-fire, you're replacing a window retrofit. This might be warranted to include. This is out of a caulking gun installation, as opposed to the tape. It typically comes in the 30-foot rolls. It's kind of like double-sided putty tape, and that would be implied in a roofing environment. But go back to that caulking. Did that include labor? That's what I was getting to. Line item 13.
Yeah, I mean, this is under the replace category code, so it would be a painter using this caulking gun in this scenario.
I guess makes sense. I mean, but that follows suit in that your painter probably isn't the one that's going to be actually using that butyl rubber, but it's as good as anything. It's close enough.
Yeah.
I don't think there would be a huge difference one way or the other between a roofer or a steel installer. But yeah, I agree, Harrison. Like steel, I've always wondered about that trade code because I'm like, God, when is steel worker used in the restoration ecosystem? So at least we got a line item here where it's being applied.
One thing you and I preach is to try to keep category codes consistent when estimating. So thankfully, there's at least two options here. Note that we've been discussing the MTL, right, the metal category code line item. When you jump to the RFG line item to look at the butyl tape for sealing metal roof, like same idea, but guess what? The labor is not a steel worker. It is, in fact, a roofer. And you can kind of see the different trade costs associated here between a metal worker, steel worker applying it, and a roofer applying it in a roofing scenario. So
roofers, wow! Since I've been in this business, like they are collecting quite a premium, and I don't even know if it's actually getting as much to the tradesmen as much as it's going to the work comp insurers. Like it's so expensive to insure your roofers nowadays. It's fantastic burden for the GC to deploy people to roofs. So you see a huge delta in cost there between those two line items because of course the material price is the same.
Yeah, so actually diving into the components, the material allotted for these two line items per linear foot is the same yield wise. But obviously the only difference is the labor associated with who's doing it as a part of that category code. So
which one would you use if you were going to be estimating a roof?
If I am doing roofing related activities, and especially if the remainder of my line items are roofing related, I think I'm using the roofing line item to apply butyl tape / sealing metal to the roofing panels that are low sloped.
You know what I want to see? I'm using the metal line item, and then knowing that that's an unfamiliar line item to the claim side of the house, I'm calling out in my F9 note that I thoughtfully selected for that category code in effort to manage severity, but I thought it was sufficient in this particular case because I wasn't working at height, you know, if it was like one story or something like that. And so you could toy around with being noble that way.
What I was mentioning is you're kind of referencing our give and take approach when it comes to estimating and negotiating, right? Yep. There's one aspect where I'm completely right to use the roofing category code and keep it consistent, but there's other aspects where it might be warranted to use the MTL category code because it reflects the costs that are associated with that particular project. And calling out, as you said, in an F9 note saying, I'm managing severity, I'm actively selecting for the line item that is not the most expensive available line item to account for these costs, but make sure that you notice that I'm giving here and making a noble selection, as you said. Let's jump now to the final ones here. New cleaning goods line items. We never spend a ton of time on these, but you've got new line items for cleaning waste baskets, garbage, and trash cans, cleaning coat racks, cleaning futon frames, and cleaning and deodorizing futon mattresses. And you can see here in kind of the June, there's minuses and plus and greater than signs and less than signs. There's all these variations. If you have a small waste basket that you're doing a heavy clean to, and somehow not just throwing it away, there you are. Now there is a line item for performing a heavy clean on a small trash can. So that's why we don't spend a lot of time on these. Let's jump down to some of the yield changes. Right? Noble additions, good to have. It's always nice to have these line items available, but we're going to spend our time focusing on the important stuff, or like the really impactful things that affect everybody's day to day. Let's jump to some of these modified yields. I'm actually going to move my June project to the right here, and you're going to see on the left side, I've got May. On the right side, I've got June. So May price list on the left, June price list on the right here, and I've added some of these line items so that we can identify some of these yield changes. So first things first, when you see this major change over here, you're going to see a ton of CEL category code yield changes in these components. And what I was looking at here is clean calculator, clean computer, clean television. These particular CELs, you can see that the yield was adjusted in a way that the unit price went down significantly. So if we were to look at the yields in May, and just for this cleaning calculator line item, you would see in May, the yield was approximately 0.55, and in June, it's almost double. So they're saying the efficiency of cleaning calculators has doubled over time, and they're trying to reflect that in the yields associated with these cleaning calculator line items. Additionally, you've got a clean and deodorized mattress or box spring here, left to right. Looks like the yield was adjusted slightly up. And when we talk about the inverse relationship between yield and price, when yield goes up, that means price slightly goes down in this particular scenario. We've got a clean wall hanging coat rack, which it looks like yield was adjusted up slightly as well. There were some modifications to the existing roll-up door line items, where actually the yield was adjusted down. So you can see here on the left side, if we jump into the yield and jump into these eyes, you can see the material components from May to June have not changed for these existing roll-up door line items. What's changed is the overhead door installer. It seems Xact did some additional research on what it's taking for people in the field to perform these installations or replacements of overhead doors, and have made adjustments not only when creating the new line items, but also when looking back at the existing line items that existed. Here, I'll jump to these. I see you diving in.
Yeah, thanks. That's exactly what I was looking for.
Direct yield
Perfect.
in May was 0.86. Now they're recognizing it's a little bit harder. It's 0.65 in June for people to install these doors. Let's see here. This is kind of a fairly common line item. PNT SDG, seal and paint wood. You can see there was a somewhat significant, almost a 50% change in the yield production of a painter. Let's see here, price per unit. So I'm going to go ahead and edit. Historically, for the yield for sealing and painting wood siding was 107.462 square feet per hour. That's been reduced to 72-ish per hour. So naturally, if something becomes harder to do, the price goes up. So you can see that reflected in the San Diego price list. It was $1.34 or $1.38 per square foot, and now it is $1.85. So
any change to the other materials? No, right? Everything stays just.
While you can see that the actual order of the material components has changed slightly and how that's presented here, the actual numbers have not. The only change that I can see, there to there, there to there, there to there. Yeah, the only change is actually in the painting labor associated with the PNT SDG cat and selector code.
Yeah, I wonder if that has to do with the roll-up door research that they did. It's quite possible it's related.
Activities, very possible, very possible. What I want to bring back up here is this price list update summary to kind of jump to the bottom, right? We looked at a lot of these. The next line items I have in here are dry text and dry text plus plus. And it's saying, dry text is to clarify what they wanted to do is that this applying a light skim coat might be covered under the dry text line item. And then dry text plus plus saying user may want to see item dry text if only a light skim coat is being applied. So, fairly common when it comes to drywall texture and applying these in invoices and estimates in the property insurance ecosystem. So Xact's trying to clarify the intention of what is or is not included in these line items explicitly.
And texture is so tough because it so gets down to the individual installer. I mean, even to match texture, if it's at all sophisticated, it's so difficult to do because it's an artist, and every artist has like its own signature, and they have their own tools to make it happen. And then trying to constrain all of that tradesman work into 5 line items has been tough. So they continue to try to clarify when this would apply or that would apply. But it's not perfectly clear to me looking at texture when light hand. What's the crossover between light hand or heavy hand? Maybe if you can see the underlying drywall, or if putty is over the entire substrate and it's heavy hand, maybe that would be the distinction. But I'm not totally clear on that. If somebody has an opinion, please clarify down below. I'd love to have your insight on that one.
I think that's why they continue to make adjustments to these item descriptions to try and clarify what is included or not included as these questions arise in the field. Jump into another highlight that I wanted to highlight here. This HMR Dis line item was brand new in April, May, I believe May actually. And so, there was a slight typo of sorts. So they've actually updated the line item note here. You'll see in May, it said if wiping of surfaces is warranted, users may consider HMR AV minus. But the problem is
not
HMR,
a line item.
AV minus isn't really a line item, so that they've updated it to HMR CLN AV minus. So, if you just read this line item information, right? Brand new HMR Dis square footage related disinfected line item. It says right here is based on the square footage of the floor area of the rooms being cleaned. Therefore, if you're just doing a wipe down of surfaces, you may want to review HMR CLN AV minus, right? Giving some direction to the user of what line item to use in different scenarios. And then I even actually added here CMR CLN AV to show you, or even AV minus to kind of show you what's there. Lastly, there was an update to the additional item information for probably one of the most popular line items of all time, WTR DRY.
It's like the OG line item for mitigation, right? You can see it right in the selector code, like
WTR dry. Oh, it's beautiful.
This is like probably prior to dehues even existing.
So historically, there was no information about the actual CFM related to that machine. So they've added a quality line to the WTR GRY line item that says greater than 850 actual CFM. And then if you jump down to dry minus, right, the mini air mover line item, I'll come here, I'm going to hit this and hit this. You'll see this is saying now it's less than 850 actual CFM. So there is now a marker in time. Xact does a pretty good job of staying away from brand names, not endorsing any one manufacturer, but each piece of equipment has its own statistics and what it's capable of. And Xactimate is tying that into the line item to say, hey, WTDRY is meant for an air mover with greater than 850 CFM, and dry minus is less than 850 CFM.
Yep. This is all like an outcome of 4 years ago when the mini air movers got introduced, right? And so for good or for bad, a bunch of restoration contractors ran out and go, oh, I'm just going to deploy a bunch of these small air movers that don't do a whole lot because I can bill $30 a day for them, so on. So then about a year later, after the introduction of that hardware, the pricing department did a prudent move, which is to incorporate and adopt this mini air mover line item. But then it was never really clear where that distinction was, because unlike dehues, it was never bothered to define the CFM. So now you can go to the manufacturer specifications and you can clearly know which line items are warranted, as these manufacturers have started to blur the lines between the mini air mover and the regular air mover. So I think this is a great move in the direction of settling claims and constraining arguments. This is a good addition, or at least a good update to some really commonly used line items.
100% agree. Taking a look here at the additional item information, we pretty much highlighted all the new ones and all the important changes that will affect a lot of those day-to-days. And then there will be some futures to come in July, which actually we'll be shooting hopefully in a couple weeks when the new prices come out. So in the meantime, that's it. 34 new line items added to the Xactimate price list in June of 2020. Whatley, thank you for jumping on here with me and taking some time to explore these changes. And I'm curious to see what you guys find in these price lists. What line items make the biggest difference for you when it comes to claim settlement? And Whatley said a couple times in this video, give us some comments down below and what you guys think about the application of these line items and what you'd like to see from us when it comes to insight sheet production. Do you guys want a roll-up door or overhead door insight sheet to be prioritized? Let us know. Whatley, you got anything else?
No, that's it, buddy. I'll see you next month.
All right. Much appreciated, everybody, and have a great day.
Be good.